All right, thanks so much. Well, Anthony, it's no secret that the expectations going into this spring are a little different for the Mets than the expectations last year. And listen, we saw 2 seasons ago a Mets team crumble under the weight of heightened expectations. We talked to Carlos Mendoza for the first time today. He's aware of those expectations and has a plan for how to combat it.
Yeah, well, look, they're going to naturally be bigger when you come within 2 wins of the World Series. But I do think there is something to be said for having done it. And we talked so much last year about this Mets team, and I think there were a lot of people who expected them to fold down the stretch and expected them to fold in October. And not only did they not do that, but now they have a history that they can draw back on, right? And say, we didn't do that. So I think for Carlos Mendoza leading this team, it's twofold. One is drawing on that history and being able to tell his players, look, you did this before, you can do it again. And the other is just sort of, it's boring, but looking at the big picture and saying this is a 162-game season. We got to get through spring training first before we start talking about getting through the season and getting to the playoffs. These guys understand that marathon. They understand what it takes. So that is what Carlos Mendoza and the Mets are going to be looking for going forward here.
Yeah, we heard, as you'd expect, the cliche of you just got to take it a day at a time. But I did like that Carlos Mendoza said you have to embrace those expectations because what other choice do you have? Of course, coming into pitchers and catchers, everybody was interested to hear from Kodai Senga, which we did today. That health is a huge question mark coming off of last season, and Carlos Mendoza and Kodai Senga addressed where the Mets' potential ace is in his rehab.
Yeah, I feel good. The offseason was kind of like a half rehab, half normal type thing, but everything was precisely written now, and I feel really good.
He dealt with a lot, last year, not a secret, right? And this off-season, at the beginning of the off-season, was kind of like finishing his rehab, if you want to call it. And then it was kind of like a shutdown period, and then the build-up again, like his preparation as a healthy player for this year. So, we'll see what it looks like. I know Hef visited with him in Japan not too long ago, and the reports were really good. We just got to see the intensity and how he's going to bounce back and things like that. But our goal is to have him ready to break camp, So what is that going to look like? We'll see, But he's healthy, knock on wood, feeling good, and ready to go.
So it sounds as though Kodai Senga will take it slow, but the hope, the expectation is that he'll be ready for opening day, if not, just immediately after that. Beyond the health of Kodai Senga, though, I think an external question at least is whether or not the Mets have enough in their starting rotation to meet the expectations of winning a World Series. How do you feel, especially about the top of that rotation?
Yeah, well, that's it. You just said it, Steve. It's the top of the rotation that I think is in question because you don't know about Kodai Senga's health. You can hope that he's going to be there and hope that he's going to be that guy, but you don't know for sure. Sean Manaea is coming off a great year, but he doesn't have this long track record of being an ace-type pitcher. So where do you get that true frontline number one? We'll see. I think the Mets did really well. David Stearns did really well this winter to infuse a lot of depth into this rotation where if someone like Kodai Senga goes down, you can plug in multiple big league caliber starting rotation options to fix him. But again, do they have enough that when you really go toe-to-toe with the top teams in the National League and the top teams in the playoffs, do you have that guy who can match up as a true ace and shut a lineup down? Right now, as we sit here, it's hard to say yes, but they do have guys with potential, Senga, Manaea, and so forth.
One piece of news about the depth options that is a bit different than we heard all winter is that Jose Butto will not be stretched out as a starter this spring. The Mets feel like they have enough depth-wise, and Butto will be a bullpen piece, a multiple-inning guy, the way that we saw him last season. Now, finally, if you look at the starting lineup, not as many question marks as the starting staff, not as much competition out there, but Jeff McNeil is an intriguing piece because last year, up and down season to say the least, finished strong when he was on the field, but that second base is now an area where the Mets have some depth of kids pushing the envelope in the minor leagues, whether it's a Luis Angel Acuna, Brett Beatty's going to get a lot of time at second base, and while Carlos Mendoza made it seem like McNeil is the guy going into spring, he did leave that door cracked a little bit open for some competition.
Yeah, and I would throw Jet Williams into that mix. He's not going to make the team on opening day, but one of the most exciting prospects in the organization. The Mets, as you say, have a lot of interesting pieces who can play second base. Now, look, at the end of the day, Jeff McNeil is going to be starting at second base on opening day. I think he's going to play pretty much every day at second base unless he gets hurt or something goes wrong. But I do like the idea of lighting a fire under a guy who hasn't had the best run of things since signing that deal to stick around long term. Jeff McNeil has been a big part of this, will continue to be a big part of this. He's going to be the second baseman. but he's going to get pushed. And there's something, hungry young kids, I agree.
Yeah, he is Anthony DiComo. I'm Steve Gelbs. That's it from day one here for us. We'll now send it back to you in the studio.